What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the T Dub Show. New and improved and better than ever. Be sure to follow me on my social media platforms, Timothy T. Wilkes on Facebook, the T Dub Show on YouTube, and Terrell Guided Me Wilkes on Instagram. And also to show your support, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, engage, and last but not least, enjoy the show. Okay, now we can get into the topic. Today's discussion is going to be dealing with the hurt. Now, a lot of times we go through heartache, we go through pain, we go through suffering, and sometimes we wonder why God won't just take it away, why God won't just heal us from that. Because a lot of times they tell you have to believe in God for healing, you have to believe in Him for deliverance from certain things, and there's sometimes when you go through some types of hurts, heartaches, and different when you suffering pain of loss and stuff like that, or you living with regret from situations like, let's just say you did somebody wrong and you lost them from your life, or they no longer want to deal with you in a certain way because of the pain you caused them, and you're wishing that pain and hurt would just go away. Sometimes God will not just immediately deliver you from those things, from that pain, from that hurt. Some things we have to live with, and I'll tell you why. And He can't remove the hurt either. And I'm gonna go into why He can't remove it. Because a lot of times we want instant relief from certain things, but a lot of the hurt, it's a lot of the experience came with that hurt. The journey that you had, that made you a better person. The hurt is what motivated you to become a better person. The hurt is what motivated you to do better in life. The hurt is what motivated you to not do things the way you did before. The hurt is what gave you the wisdom, the knowledge, the experience to either share it with other people or to not make the same mistakes again. So sometimes He can't remove it, because if He removed the hurt, He have to remove the experience. He had to remove the journey. Had to go with it. The knowledge had to go with it. The knowledge we acquired, the lessons that we learned throughout that situation, that has to go with it. Just like a lot of things, there's some things I did in my life. The first I used to regret it, but God, Lord told me, if you regret, if I remove that stuff, if you was to go back, if I was to remove those actions, you'd also lose that experience, that wisdom, everything that you gained along the way to make you who you are today. Sometimes He can't just remove the pain, what you learned through those growing pain. He can't remove it because He had to remove the journey. He had to remove the experience. He had to remove the knowledge. He had to remove the overall. And let's say you went to therapy. That experience may have caused you. If it wasn't for that experience, you wouldn't have went to therapy in the first place. If it wasn't for that experience, you wouldn't have took certain people out of your life that didn't belong in the first place. If it wasn't for that experience, you wouldn't have did the things that you needed to do to get the help that you needed. If it wasn't for that experience, you wouldn't have gone on a journey that you needed to do some soul searching, to gain some wisdom, to spend that time with God, to have that growth with God, you wouldn't be as close to God as you are now if it wasn't for that experience. So sometimes some pains are necessary, and because they make up who we are. We can't just always, because sometimes He don't always remove it because it's a part of who we are. We also be removing pieces of ourselves. We also be removing, because let's say if you become a wonderful man and woman of God now, if He remove that hurt, He'll remove pieces that make up you. You wouldn't be as whole and complete as you are now with those, because you're gonna think about it every now and then. You're gonna have, as long as those things don't control your life. There's certain things you might wonder over every now and then. Certain things you might it might hit your mind. Certain situations you might wish you could go back and undo. But I'm here to tell you today, if you was able to go back and undo it, you would also be undoing years of wisdom. You also be undoing years of experience. You also be undoing the counsel that you may have had to receive along the way. The growth. You don't want to undo growth. Hypothetically, let's say this is just hypothetical now. If you could go back, you'll be undoing years of Years of that growth. And we need experience sometimes to teach each other, to teach our kids, to help ourselves, to even maneuver better through life. Now, only thing we could do is move forward. We the past year might bother certain things we did in the past year, but we can't change those things. We have to use those things to move forward. And I'm gonna tell you, and another, like I said, why you can't remove that hurt, because it's a part of who you are currently. It makes up who you are in the present. The pain from the past makes up who you are in the present. So it's part of who you are. It's part of the way you think. It's a part of the way you act. It's a part of the way you move. Both good and bad. A lot of the things that you do, that's part of what made you a better person. It's part of what made you more attentive. It's part of what made you wiser. It's part of what made you closer to God. So he can't just remove those things. He can't just remove it, because it's like getting a car and taking it apart and taking the doors off, taking the tires off of it. It won't operate the same. So he can't. That's why he can't do that. That's why you can't go back. And the person that you used to be, and a lot of times we try to go back to who we was before that hurt happened. We can't do that. We can't do it, because who we were before that is dead. That person don't exist anymore. Because once we had that experience, it opened us up to new possibilities. It opened us up to a new way of thinking. It opened us up to now a new reality, a new sense of normalcy. Now that we see this new sense of normalcy, now that we experience this, there's no going back. Just like if something happened in your childhood. Let's say if you was touched or something in your childhood, something happened, some traumatic experience. The pain, you may get over the pain, you may learn to live with it, but that event can't be removed, because if it was removed, it would also remove the therapy that you had to go through. It also remove the experiences. It also remove what you learned along the way. It also remove your knowledge of how human beings actually work, that there are actually foul people out there. It'll remove all the experience. It'll remove all the, because there's always good with the bad. With that trauma, that's where that knowledge came. That's what causes us to operate the way we operate. And even though I'm talking to people, God too, our ministry wouldn't be as effective if it wasn't for the trauma, if it wasn't for the pain, if it wasn't for the heartache, if it wasn't for the mistakes. Our ministry wouldn't be as effective. It takes those things. It takes that hurt. It takes that pain. It takes the past. It takes the trauma. It takes those bad experiences to make up our ministry. We wouldn't be able to testify to people. We wouldn't be able to help people out. We wouldn't be able to pass that knowledge on to somebody else. We wouldn't be able to use righteous judgment with people that follow us, or with people that seeking our counsel, seeking our advice. We wouldn't be able to. You can't help nobody without experience. I wouldn't be able to do this message without experience. If I hadn't went through any pain, if I never went through any trauma, I never went through anything traumatic or sad, if I've never dealt with depression, I wouldn't be able to do this. It takes that experience. It takes me having to deal with depression. It takes me having to deal with anxiety. It takes me having to go to therapy and go through all these things and have traumatic experiences. It took that to make my ministry effective. So he said, I can't take away your hurt. I can't take away your pain, because if I do, I'll take away. It'll chip away at your ministry. Your ministry wouldn't be as effective. So bad things have to happen in order for good things to blossom. Some bad things have to happen in order for good things to blossom. You can't expect roses and ice cream and daisies your whole life. You have to go through something. You have to go through and experience something. That's the only way you're going to be able to come out stronger. It's the only way you're going to get wiser. It's the only way you're going to grow. It's only going to come more effective. Just like people that's physically fit, they have to put themselves through a lot of stress. Their body go through a lot of stress, their muscles are tearing up and healing back again. I know, because I was an athlete. I still work out. Sometimes I get sore, and you tearing your muscles up. It's the process of tearing your muscles and healing them again. Tearing them, healing them, tearing them, healing them, tearing them, healing them. But in the end, they become stronger. In the end, you become faster. In the end, your stamina improves and stamina increases. You become more. Your muscles, your body starts adjusting more and more. So let's say if you in life, the more you go through, the more you deal with. I'm not saying you go out there and do crazy stuff and learn stuff the hard way. This is what I'm saying. The more that you go through your trials, the more trials and tribulations that you endure, the more experience now that you have, the more you can you can pass on to somebody else. Now, or the less, and also too, the less judgmental you are towards other people. You won't judge people as harshly because now you've experienced that. You won't be like, because you have people, you have ministers that are like, they shouldn't be depressed. They ain't got no business being depressed. They're a minister. But if they actually went through depression, they wouldn't be saying that. I don't see how that person can like same sex. They going to hell. They don't need to be doing that. Until you deal with that temptation, until you have to deal with that temptation, until you have a circumstance that comes into your life that makes you deal with that temptation, until you are being tortured by those desires, you don't know what it's like. Until you in their shoes, you can't say nothing. If you never walked in their shoes, if you never experienced that, if you never dealt with that, you can't say anything. That's why I say that hurt. That pain, it takes that pain for your. That's where your empathy kicks in. That's part of your empathy. That's a part of a lot of things that we have and need. It causes hurt. You have that hurt. You have the trauma there, but you also have the good things that make up who you are. Because you have people. I've known people that have a lot of trauma, a lot of hurt in their life. They're some of the most nicest, kindest, sweetest, compassionate, empathetic, understanding people that I've ever met. But it's the pain that made them who they are. If it wasn't for that, they might not have been as empathetic. Their ministry may not have been as effective. Their heart may have not been as pure, as good, as willing to improve, constantly willing to serve. And it takes that for us to give God His yes too. Sometimes it takes that, it takes the pain, it takes the hurt, it takes those experiences in order for us to know, hey Lord, your way is the only way. There ain't no other way gonna work. We know through that experience, we know through that pain, we know through that hurt, we know through that suffering, we know through that trauma. Your way is the only way. You're the only protector, provider of our life. We can't do it without you. That's the only way we're gonna make it. That experience teaches you that. That hurt teaches you that. That pain, that loss of a loved one, and it helps you. And then when you're dealing with, you may have somebody. If you ever had a massive loss of a loved one that hurts you so bad, or a divorce, you ever went through a divorce. You won't know how to help somebody else that went through it unless you went through it yourself and had to make it, had to overcome it. Because you might be asking yourself, if you're going through a lot of hurt, pain right now, you might be asking yourself, why? God, why is all this happening to me? Why am I hurting? God, why you can't take this hurt away? Why this pain can't go? Because sometimes it takes that to help other people. Sometimes we need that. Somebody else might approach us and need that assistance. You're going to make it out. It said, many of the afflictions of the righteous, but He shall deliver us out of them all. You're going to make it out of it, but you're not doing it. It's not just about you. It's just so we can help other people, so we can talk to other people. Because a lot of lawyers became lawyers because they seen other people get locked up. They seen other things. Some of them was falsely persecuted and stuff like that. So they make it their mission. I heard a story where it was a man, he became a lawyer because he was falsely persecuted. And so he made his mission to become a lawyer and get other people. If it wasn't for that pain, if it wasn't for that suffering, if it wasn't for that, he wouldn't be in position to where God needed him to be, to get other people out of what he was going through, what he had to do, because God got him out and used him to get other people out. If it wasn't for the pain, if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't be in. Sometimes it takes that to be in position. It takes that so you could be used by Him more effectively. Your ministry is not effective without the pain. Your ministry is not as effective without the struggle. It's not as effective without the hurt, without the heartache, without the suffering. Sometimes it takes that to get in position so we can be better used by Him. That's the only way it's going to be effective. It's like certain things that we wear, certain diamonds and all of that, gold. It endures a lot of pressure before it becomes this beautiful product. It has to go through a lot of pressure. It has to go through a lot of, and even no matter a lot of things that we have, it goes through a process. Not a comfortable process, not an easy process, but it goes through a process. And without that process, you have to have the process. We have to be processed. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you come from, where you live, where your mama stay. We all have to have that process. So I've had hurts, some hurts lingering on for years and years, but I learned so much out of that hurt. I kept dissecting it. Okay, why is I hurt? What if I had done it this way? What if I did it this way? But I realized I couldn't have done it no other way because I didn't know no better in the first place. It took that for me to know better. It took that for me to do it different. It took those things. It took losing people for me to learn how to treat people better. It took a lot of that stuff, those experiences, for me to learn how to maneuver, how to act, how to talk to people. It took certain experiences. That's what made me the person I am today. That's always striving to do better. That's seeking the Lord. That's always trying to find ways to please God. All that. It took those hurts. It took those disappointments. It took all the crying, all the tears, all the years of depression, the years of just people hurting me and leaving my life, and it took all of that to get where I am. It took it. It's what it took. It had to happen. So if you're going through all that, if you're going through a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, if you just still dealing with that pain, I'm not saying don't do no work to get better. I'm not saying don't do no healing, because I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I'm a huge advocate for therapy, and not saying that. And it took all that to make me go to therapy, and in dealing with that pain and facing that pain and confronting it head on, I learned something every time I confronted each flaw that I had. Every time I confronted whatever traumatic experience I went to, every time I faced it, I didn't try to cover it up with medications, none of that. Every time I confronted it, I learned something about myself. Every time I confronted it, I got delivered from something else. I grew. I had that experience. I went through it, made it out, healed from it. Sometimes that pain would linger until you learn what you need to learn too. Once you learn everything you need to learn from that hurt, that's when a lot of times it may not, even if it hits your mind, it won't bother you nearly as much as when you was hurting from it. It might still hit your mind, but it won't sting like that. It might be a scar, but it's not an open wound anymore. It's not something that's just lingering. It's not consuming your life. If it's consuming if it's hurting bad like that, that means something that's not being dealt with, something that's not being confronted, something that's being, because a wound, you have to address that wound. If you just let it sit there, it might get infected. So you might be sitting around with an emotional wound that's infected because you hadn't been treating it. You hadn't done anything to treat it. You hadn't put no work towards, no self-care, no kind of counseling, anything like that to treat that wound. All wounds have to be treated. They say time heals all wounds. Time plays a part, but it's not the only thing. There has to be a remedy. If you break your leg, you can't just sit up there with that leg. You'll never walk again. It won't heal right. It has to be treated. Every wound has to be addressed. It has to be treated properly. You scratch your leg, you have to put some peroxide in it. You have to treat that wound. You can't just let it sit. If you have a gashing wound in your knee or thigh or leg, it's the same thing. You have to treat it. You have to be properly treated. You have to go to the doctor, treat it, go somewhere, treat it, go to the emergency room, wherever you gotta go to treat that wound. Else it's gonna get infected. Same way with your emotional wound. Why it's been 3 years, why is it still hurting and it seems like it's getting worse? Because it's infected. Your emotional wound is infected. You hadn't been putting in the work to treat it. That's why I say I'm always an advocate for treating it, but it ain't left right away. It's there so you can address it, so you can take the steps to learn. That hurt is your learning lesson. That hurt is your teacher. That hurt is it's going to give you your experience, going to give you your wisdom. It's going to give you that empowerment that you've always wanted, that you've always needed. So learning from that hurt is going to make you whole. Learning from that hurt is going to make you the man or woman that God called you to be. Learning from that hurt is going to propel you forward in life and whatever you need to do, whatever you're trying to do, whatever vision He's showing you in your life and your mind. That learning from that, it's going to take learning from that hurt to get there. So we need hurt. We need pain. Might not think we do, but you need it. When you working out, it takes that pain to make you stronger. It takes that pain, like people that do bodybuilding, people that do those competitions. It takes that pain to get them where they go, to get that trophy, get that prize, whatever they're trying to get. It takes the pain to get the pain. It ain't neat. We don't want it. We don't like it, but we need it to get where we're going. They have to go through that pain in order to get where they're going. Otherwise, it's not as effective. I want to do the easiest workout. You're not going to get any results. We need that pain. If you're going through a lot of pain, that means God is propelling you. You have to use that pain. Learn from that pain. God is trying to show you something, trying to teach you something, so you can. If you properly address that pain, you properly address those wounds. Those are all. Look at pain. Look at every situation. Take every situation in your life that you hurting from. Look at it as a lesson. Look at it as homework. This is my homework. I gotta address this wound. I gotta address this. It's a lesson in that pain. It's a lesson in that. Like somebody hurt you 3 years ago and you still dealing with it. That's a lesson that you have to pick up and learn from. That's a growth. Look at that as a growth spurt. Look at every painful lesson as a growth spurt. If you do it like that, I guarantee you, your progress, you're gonna grow exponentially. Every time something comes, God brings something to my spirit that I'm dealing with, hurting with, I can't wait to take it to therapy. I can't wait to address it. I can't wait, because I see that as started looking at all the trauma happening in my life. I started looking at it as growing opportunities. I started looking at it as opportunities to learn, opportunities to improve, opportunities to make myself better, opportunities to prepare myself for, opportunities to become closer to the man that God needed me to be, and the man that I desire to be in the Lord. Become closer. It's all growth opportunities. It's all an opportunity. It's a chance for you to learn. It's a chance. You have to address those. You can't just let it sit. Well, it's gonna heal eventually. No, it's not. It's gonna get infected. That's why it hurts worse. After a while, that's why it hurts worse. If you hadn't dealt with your stuff and you wondering why it's hurting now, and you don't think it ain't affecting nothing. No, that's why you lashing out. That's why you snapping on people. That's why your attitude stinks. That's why you talking crazy to people. That's why when you get triggered, you black out, you lose sight. That's why somebody say the wrong thing, you ready to fight, you ready to go off, because your wounds are infected. That's why somebody say something that's come close to what you went through, you ready to snap out, you ready to cuss somebody out, you ready to fight, you ready to act a fool, you start going crazy, you start talking crazy, you fall into a deep depression because your wound is infected. Your emotional wounds are infected. They need to be properly addressed. They hadn't healed. And God wants his people to heal so they can be in position, so they can be used to heal other people. We can't lay in the bed and cry about our wounds for all our life. It's time for us to get up, go to a doctor, get us some help, whatever we need to do, and address these wounds. You're not going to be able to do it by yourself. You need somebody to help. You need some people to talk to. You need some kind of counselor, something. If you can't afford therapy, something. You need some kind of counselor to talk to, somebody you can confide in that can help you confront these wounds, help you deal with this stuff. And you have YouTube might be your best friend. You might have other things. You might have other exercises, because the whole key to it is doing exercises. So that exercise to help you heal from hurt. That exercise to help you confront your past. And YouTube is, like you said, YouTube is our best friend. You got books you can read. It don't have to be expensive therapy. If you don't have insurance to afford it, there's other ways, more than one way to skin a cat. That hurt has to be dealt with. That's why I'm an advocate for therapy. You have to address that wound. I see emotional wounds just like a physical wound. You cut your leg wide open, you're not just gonna sit there. You're gonna try to get you some help quick. So why sit around with an emotional wound? Your heart is gaping open. Your emotional heart. It's just, you have a gaping wound. You just sitting around with it for years, bottling it up. It'll go away. I ain't worried about it. You better be. it gets infected. That's why in the past we talk about previous generations didn't know how to treat us. They was acting crazy. They was talking crazy to us. Or they might have said stuff to us. That's why you have people, they might stamp out on you for no reason or talk crazy to you for no reason. Or if you say something to trigger them, they'll lash out. Their emotional wounds are infected. That's what God keeps giving me. Your emotional wounds are infected. Address those wounds. They need to be addressed. They need to be so you can grow and change and evolve. Once you address those wounds, imagine the type of person you'll be. Imagine the type of person you'll be. Just like when you do your homework in school, you are so much smarter once you graduate high school versus when you start kindergarten. You do your homework, you do all your grades, you don't realize that how far you are growing. You don't realize how much you advance. You don't realize how much smarter you're getting. You don't realize how much wiser you're getting. You don't realize how much more capable you're getting and prepare you are for the world. They teach you all kind of skills that you don't even realize you're learning. A lot of things they say, oh, you don't use the stuff in the school. You don't use that stuff in school no more. Yes, you do. In school, they teach you stuff that you use the rest of your life. When you learn how to write them papers, you have to use that language when you're talking, when you have to be in front of important people, when you have to be in important settings. English was our best friend when we was writing those essays. That was our best friend when we had to write letters to people, when you had to communicate business wise, when you have to write proposals, write business plans. What if we hadn't learned none of that? History is important. I ain't gonna go into detail about how all of it was true or not, but it helped you. It taught you how to do research. It taught you how to study. It taught the stuff that we learned in school. It taught us how to study. It taught us how to learn, because you have to learn how to learn. Imagine we hadn't learned that stuff. How much behind you'll be. You ever talk to somebody that dropped out in the 8th grade or 7th grade compared to and didn't apply themselves? I'm not saying everybody, because some people done started businesses and became wealthy. But I'm talking about the ones that didn't apply themselves at all. They didn't got no high school education, nothing. They ain't apply themselves versus college grad. One is way more advanced than the other, because it's skills that you learn that you don't think you're learning. That's what I'm talking about with this hurt. It's skills and it's knowledge and experience that you getting. It's growth in it that you getting. You don't realize how far you're growing once you addressing these wounds. It's a lot of growth you're missing out on when you just sitting on them. You gotta address them. You gotta start dealing with them. You gotta write down everything that's hurting you, everything you hadn't dealt with in your past, everything you hadn't been delivered from, everything that's hurting you, everything that's causing you pain, everything that triggers your anxiety, the stuff that triggers your depression, the stuff that triggers you mentally, the stuff that sets you. Write all that down, and there's lessons in all of that stuff. You go back and just write down that situation. Write down the person's name, whoever hurt you, all of that. Those are things, there's lessons in that stuff. And that's what makes us better. That's what makes us do things different. That's what makes us wiser. Like I said, it makes us the people who we need to be. And like I said, I see all that as opportunity to grow, to learn, to improve. So we have to deal with the hurt. Deal with the hurt. Don't let it sit. Don't try to just pray it away. Ask God, just take it away. We have to deal with it. We have to get down in there. It's situations that you introduced to my life that I had no control over. Why I got to deal with them? Those are your assignments. When you're in class, you have assignments. Did you ask for that assignment? No. But that's an assignment. It ain't that he's torturing you. He don't want to torture you. Why would God want to see you suffer, tortured? Why would God want to see you cry? It breaks his heart to see you cry. But here's the thing. It's an assignment. It's all about our mindset. Now, we experienced it. It's okay for us to grieve or go through certain things in the moment. I'm talking about when you look back on the past of things that hurt you, those are assignments that you need to complete. Wounds you need to address. that are infected because they hadn't been treated. Once you complete those assignments, just see how far you advance. You'll be surprised how far you advance. You'll be surprised how wise you get. You'll be surprised how much you learn. You'll be surprised your growth of your knowledge and your experience, your wisdom, the wisdom that you're going to acquire. How much better you're going to be as a person. But that's my time though. If you live for God, believe in what He say, He's going to take you a mighty long way. I hope you learned something. I love y'all with the love of the Lord. Till next time, I'll catch y'all later.